Welcome to the Seamless Shopping Without Shrink show, the second episode. Today I'm here with Dion Hofste, product manager at the leading checkout manufacturer in the Netherlands. Welcome.
Thank you.
Excited that you are here. Today we're going to talk about, of course, seamless shopping without shrink, and especially we will focus on the self-checkout experience, of course. But first, before we dive into that, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your role at the company?
Yes, my name is Dion Hofste. I'm working as a product manager at Pan Oston for about 5 years now. And I'm responsible for the standard portfolio of Pan Oston's products. So, and maybe interesting to tell you something about Pan Oston as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, Pan Oston is based in Raalte, just an hour drive away from where we are right now, exactly. Groenlo. Yeah. So pretty close to Nedap. We started life as a generic sheet metal manufacturing company called Kamphuis. Huh? And at a certain moment in time, the company Pan Oston took over Kamphuis. And because Kamphuis was already manufacturing belted checkouts, well, we're talking 40, 50 years ago. And Pan Oston was a Finland-based company with multiple European sites. And, well, the name Pan Oston in Finnish means I'm buying or I made a purchase. So that's really explains the link to retail. So that's it. And at a certain moment in time, the current owner stepped in and decided to only keep the site that was formerly known as Kamphuis. So that's why we only have one major headquarters in Raalte right now.
Yeah, exactly. And you're a product manager at Pan Oston, as you said. We have some very exciting product news also in this podcast, but we'll come to that later. Hey, of course, the title of this show is Seamless Shopping Without Shrink. Mm-hmm. What does that mean to you, that phrase, seamless shopping without shrink?
Yeah, seamless shopping is something we always try to search for. Well, if we look back, decades ago, then it was in belted checkouts. But since 2016, we are manufacturing self-checkouts as well. And with self-checkouts, suddenly it became a bit different because customers need to do the job of the cashier. So it's even more important to create a checkout process without any friction, just to keep customers satisfied. So with the introduction of self-checkouts, the seamless part of seamless shopping was very important. And shrink, of course, is also a part when implementing self-service.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hey, and the rise of self-checkout, I mean, you've experienced it firsthand. What are like the reasons for retailers to implement self-checkout? What do you hear back from retailers?
From retailers, we hear that it's super important to create a different means of checkout. So we have different shopper types. Some only do lunch shopping. Some do bi-weekly shopping. In the Nordics, for example, they do bi-weekly shopping. And basically everything in between. Yeah. So there are multiple shopper types, and basically every shopping type demands their own type of checkout. And a couple of years ago, we only had the belted checkout, and that's it. And luckily, there are more examples. So we have scan as you shop, and we have the self-checkout. And luckily, there's also still an option to go to the belted checkout.
Yeah, you say luckily, is that your shopper type that you still want to?
It's not particularly my shopper type, no. But there is still a big part of people that really like to go to a belted checkout. So I think the diversity of checkout types is a good thing.
Yeah, right. We spoke beforehand, and I asked you the question: what makes a good SCO? What makes a good self checkout? You said it's a simple question, but it's a difficult answer. But try to answer the question as well. Yeah.
A good self checkout, in my opinion, is a really simple self checkout. I think the one we've created for Albert Heijn is a really good example of a very simple self-checkout. Not a lot of not a lot of hardware that needs to be processed by the customer. It's just as simple as possible, and that's sometimes very hard to do because retailers have a lot of requests, and you do not create a self-checkout as Pan Oston alone. We need to cooperate with the software supplier, with the hardware POS supplier. So it's always a joint effort.
Yeah, exactly. So you say like, okay, not too much, but is it like a risk for retailers if they want to start with self-checkout, that they want to do a lot of bells and whistles at the self-checkout?
Well, there is as the title of the show already implies, there is a certain fear of shrink when implementing self-checkout. So there's a very, I think it's a very natural reaction to come up with as many of shrink reducing measures. But in my opinion, if you add too much technological, too much technology to reduce the shrink, the customer experience is suffering. And I think that's really important to keep the customers satisfied and battle shrink. Yes, you can use technology, but you need to make sure it's implemented very well so it doesn't hinder the shopping journey.
Yeah. Yes, and speaking about shrink and theft at the self-checkout, there's been research that there's a direct correlation between theft and self-checkout. I mean, I think you always you as Pan Oston also need to deal with that. Mm-hmm. How do you answer those questions from retailers about shrink?
Well, we try to stay as a company up to date about all the latest technology there is, all the latest trend reports there are, and sometimes retailers do struggle with the topic, and then we say, why don't you come over to our headquarters in Raalte, and then we organize 2-day workshop where we can address those problems, and then we can show them also solutions from other retailers in the field, because I think that's a very interesting point about our company, is that we have knowledge from a lot of retailers, because we know about a lot of retailers and sectors how they are dealing with this issue.
Yeah. Hey, can you tell me a little bit about like what kind of technology you're integrating into your self-checkout?
Well, latest trend is camera technology. So we are implementing cameras. So there are software vendors who develop AI software for product recognition, for example. They can use our cameras to look at our self-checkout. So that's a big topic right now, integrating cameras, and it's cameras looking at a scanner surface, bioptic scanner surface, but also at the customer itself. Cameras that are being used for confrontation purposes. So we add a secondary screen, so you are confronted with all the actions you are doing at the self-checkout. I think that's a particular bad example of implementing technology, but
why do you think that's bad?
I think we are creating a machine, and the customer is being, how do you call it? The customer gets a feeling that they are doing something wrong. And it's just not a really pleasant experience. And I think it should be a pleasant experience. And if all the friction is taken away from the self-checkout process, then you also have a lot less fraud, because you have a lot less frustration. And in addition, you always need to have the human assistance on hand. So the hosting on a self-checkout area is super important. If there is some sort of friction, to tackle it right away.
Yeah, because one of the reasons I think to implement self-checkout is that retailers, are understaffed. So they still want to have as many checkout transactions, but then with less people. So it's tempting to understaff also your self-checkout zone. But what I hear you saying is that, no, that's actually where you need to put in
Yes, staff shortage is a big issue and is one of the reasons self-checkouts are being implemented. We need to be clear about that. But staff is still very important on the self-checkout area as well.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, and besides theft prevention, do you see any other trends in self-checkout or scan as you go? Perhaps also per country or per region?
Well, currently in Europe, accessibility is a big topic. The European Accessibility Act is will be implemented from the 28th of June. And then a lot of self-service terminals need to comply to the Accessibility Act. And basically that directive is created to optimize the use of self-service terminals because every person, every customer needs to be able to do their checkout on a self-checkout. So a lot of retailers are asking us to come up with an accessible self-checkout.
Yeah, and what do you mean by accessible?
Accessible is basically for people in wheelchairs, people with limited vision. Well, you can imagine if you have limited vision, but still want to use the self-checkout, it is a pretty
you need to
difficult thing to do.
Yeah, you need to look at the screen, and especially if you have these non-barcode items for at the bakery, for example, and then you need to search for your role. Yeah.
Okay, and you first need to find the right self-checkout for you.
Right. Yeah.
So we have created special self-checkouts for handicapped people, but it usually was 1 on 20 self-checkouts. Well, if you're visually impaired, it's pretty difficult to find that one go on that self-checkout area.
Yeah. And how do you improve that?
We think we can create a self-checkout for all users. And this will ask some compromises from both users. But we showed one at the Eurosys as well, which we think is that one self-checkout, one type of self-checkout can cover all users. For example, you need to integrate an extra piece of hardware so you can plug in your hearing aid and you can navigate the screen. So if you are visually impaired, you can still hear the interface.
Right.
This, of course, also asks something from the software provider and the hardware provider to make the best solution.
Are there any other trends besides accessibility?
Cash is still is also in a certain way inclusiveness topic. So there are still a lot of people who want to pay with cash, and cash and self-service is something that's it's not always been done right. In the Netherlands, we are very used to card only self-checkout. In the UK, card only is also very accepted. But in Germany, for example, cash is still very big. So we need to take care of cash paying customers as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I know that it really differs per country, like what you. Hey, and like the types of self-checkout. Of course, you have your self-checkout terminal where you scan your own products, but you also have Scan as you go, where you walk around with the hand scanner. That's especially big in the Netherlands, but also with your phone or with the app of the retailer. Do you see anything happening in that space?
We embrace every type of self-scanning or self-checkout. Scan as you shop, so walking around with your hand scanner is very useful for people who are doing large weekly shopping. So we need to make sure our checkout is ready to do payment on for a Scan as you shop customer as well. So every shopper type needs to be able to fulfill the checkout at one of our terminals. We sometimes get use cases from retailers who say, okay, I have a store with a certain problem because I have a very high amount of lunch shoppers. They are all in at 12 and out at 1, so a very big peak. then they sometimes ask us to come up with a good solution. So usually we create a self-checkout type that is aimed for customers with only 1 to 5 items, and we can pack a lot of self-checkouts on a small area, so we can process a lot of customers. So those are requests we get, and we try to help the retailers out.
Yeah. Hey, and when implementing self-checkouts, we talked about it a little bit before, but like, what are the common pitfalls that you see that retailers make when implementing self-checkout? I think one is, relying heavily on technology. Are there any other pitfalls?
Lack of hosting is a very common pitfall, and as I think especially when you are rolling out self-checkout for the first time, it's super important to have human assistance. So the host should really have a hospitality role. It's a really different function from a cashier. Should have a hospitality role, and she or he should actively promote using the self-checkout. So they need to pull people from the queues and say, okay, I'm going to teach you how to use the self-checkout. That's super important. And do not be too strict on controlling shrink in the first couple of months, because I think it's super important to first get the adoption up and high, and then later on, when adoption among all your customers is good, then you can start controlling shrink and make sure that you can reduce the shrink levels.
Right. I think also one of the big trends that we see is the adoption of self-checkout in fashion retail.
Mm-hmm.
Pan Oston is the market leader in self-checkout, but mainly I think for supermarkets and for health and beauty stores. I think fashion retail has been lacking a little bit behind, in my opinion, but I think that trend is now, it's growing.
Mm-hmm.
And we are working together, NeedUp and Pan Oston, on a self-checkout for fashion retail with RFID technology. Can you tell me something about that?
Yeah, we created an RFID self-checkout together.
Yeah.
And that was a very fun process to do, because it's also a first for us. And I think you can, combining the two expertise of the company, can create a self-checkout that really feels like magic. You do not have to scan your items anymore. You can just sort of dump them in a big black box, and the rest is magic. So that's in terms of user experience is great. And I think this type of self-checkout can really be easily implemented in fashion as well, because it's not that difficult to adopt by customers. Because something that I think is super important in order for fashion to adopt the use of self-checkout is that you have a really easy to handle self-checkout. In a supermarket, for example, you visit a supermarket maybe at least once a week, maybe even more often. But if the first time is if you have a self-checkout with a steep learning curve, it's not that bad, because you visit the store pretty frequent, so you get the hang of it pretty quick. But in a fashion store, I think you only visit it maybe once every couple months. So it should work right away.
Depends, of course, on the shopper type,
exactly.
as you said before.
Exactly. But I think the frequency of visits is a lot lower.
Yeah.
So if you want to make sure the adoption is right, you need to have a self-checkout that's very easy to understand. And I think RFID technology can really has the answer to it.
Yeah. And why do you think that RFID technology improves the customer experience?
You do not have to scan your items. The self-checkout scans the items for you.
Yeah.
So that's very convenient. It's also therefore a very fast process. But I think one thing that's important to notice is the removal of hard tags. I think if a retailer can avoid the removal of hard tags at a SCO, that would be really helpful as well, because that is a pretty difficult task to perform for a user who has never done it before.
And again, I'm also very curious about your opinion on that, but like where we, of course we think about that, and I think what you said about the hosting of that self-checkout zone, especially when it comes to also removing hard tags, is very important. If you try to remove your hard tags, if you let your shoppers do it, it's then the whole purpose of a self-checkout with its convenience and its, and the ease of shopping and how fast it is, it kind of disappears because the typical shopper is not an expert in detaching hard tags. So I think the easiest way to do is let your self-checkout host in the store take care of that. And then you can light up the self-checkout if there are hard tags detected or something like that. And then I think secondly, with RFID technology, which items are hot, which items get stolen in a store, on your whole estate or in certain regions. So you can use less hard tags. So you don't need to use the hard tags on your hot products, on the products that get stolen the most. So you have less hard tags in your store that needs to be detached. And then finally, of course, you have these self-checkout hard tags, which sometimes are okay, but they're also, a little bit more expensive. So that's the balance that the retailers need to think of. But I think in my experience, having a host there that takes care of all those tasks is the preferred way. But I'm also curious, like, on what you're thinking.
Yeah, I think it's especially in fashion. I think the serviceability, the service level is a bit should be a bit higher than in a grocery store, for example. So people expect that as well. So you need the human assistance, and I think if you need to remove the hard tags yourself, it's just another friction point. So that should be, shouldn't be there, in my opinion.
What's your if you try to look into the future, how do you see the adoption of self-checkout go in fashion? Because you deliberately chose for RFID and not just a traditional barcode scanner for the fashion market. Like, I'm curious, like, why did you choose for RFID, and do you see that growing? Because I think it was a deliberate choice to integrate RFID technology into the self-checkout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's the technology itself makes the process just so much faster and easy to understand. It's a no-brainer, and I think customers, Decathlon already paved the way for the use of RFID SCO, and I think that type of self-checkout can be optimized a lot, but then still customers love it, and the way it works is great. So I think if you have a good RFID SCO, then if there are fashion retailers out there who are already using RFID, then the jump to an RFID SCO is very easy to make. If you do not have an RFID implemented in the supply chain, okay, then it's a bit of a different story.
Exactly. Yeah. Hey, and do you see RFID self-checkout? Is that for every fashion retailer, or do you see certain retailers that it's better for one retailer than for the other?
Yeah, probably if you're talking about high fashion, then it will not match the experience a customer wants to have in the store. You want to be serviced by a well-trained professional, and so it probably won't match that fashion retailer. But if you're talking about the sort of mainstream fashion or sports fashion, I think it's very it's very good to do, and I think its customers also will expect it at a certain time because they know it basically from everywhere now. The self-service is expanding in every sector. Yeah. We even see it at DIY garden train stations, basically everything is self-service. So they probably expect it in the fashion world as well.
Yeah, exactly. And then you already need to sometimes stand in the queue for the fitting room to try on your clothes, and then also stand in the line for a traditional checkout. I don't think that's the experience you want to give.
What I do think is interesting is how it evolves the placement of self-checkouts in the fashion store, because we know from supermarket retail, they have a very dedicated area, a dedicated checkout area, and you have a dedicated route through the store. And in fashion, it's all very fluid. Yeah. You need to be in the store as long as possible, and usually checkouts are somewhere halfway in the store. And that's something we see right now with the self-checkouts in fashion. They do not have a fixed place in store, and I think that's interesting how that will evolve.
Yeah. Where do you think that it will evolve to? Where do you hope it will evolve to, maybe?
Well, if you talk about shrink, we always say it's the best to have one dedicated checkout area that you can host. It's just the easiest to host. And it's also very easy for the customer. The shopping journey is over. You have taken your items, and now it's time for payment, for scanning and payment. That's your job. So I always think it's difficult for. We do as well. We make impulse shelving around the self-checkout, so customers are perceived to take.
Just take that extra little product.
But I think that's sort of blurring of the two processes, because the picking of items should be done, and now it's time for scanning and payment. And if you then present an extra items to the customer, I think you create fraud with it. But I understand that a fashion store works very differently from a grocery store. So I can imagine that's not the way a fashion retailer wants to go with a dedicated self-checkout area. So they will be sort of scattered around the store. But then it will be a challenge for good to be able to host them in a proper way.
Yeah, that's interesting. Let's see how it goes. Hey, you showed our first RFID self-checkout at Eurosys. For the record, we're recording this podcast now at the end of March. So it was a month ago. We will be showing, or Pan Oston will be showing the RFID self-checkout next week at the Retail Technology Show in London. It's probably after people hear this podcast, but maybe they can look back on the website of Pan Oston and see how it went. What are your plans? Any future plans you can share for the RFID self-checkout? Where can people perhaps see it, or what are your plans with it?
Well, we created this particular type of self-checkout for the pilot customer America Today, and I think that's super important because we could really match their interior, match their branding and their styling. So I think whenever another customer comes around, we can do the same exercise for them to really make it fit their interior and their styling. So that's definitely something we will do. We have one in our showroom. In Raalte, we have a very nice showroom where we expose all of our products. So the RFID scope will be there as well. And I think we will ship one to Groenlo as well. So Meda will also have one in their showroom.
We will be taking it with us everywhere we go on every exhibition.
That's very good. And well, hopefully we can see it in real life, of course, in a store.
Yeah, great, awesome. To be continued. Hey, lastly, if you had to give one advice to retailers that want to start with self-checkout, perhaps fashion retailers, what would that be?
If you want to start with self-checkout, I think it's really important to focus on customer adoption first. The fears about shrink, they are true. You can have them. It's okay. But firstly, you need to really focus on adoption of self-checkouts. So create a self-checkout that has at least friction as possible. That's easy to understand, has the best customer experience. And whenever that's right, people like to use your means of checkout. And whenever people are really using your self-checkout, then you can start controlling the shrink. I think that's the way to go.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Dion. Glad to have you on the show. And until next time.
Yeah, thank you as well.
Thank you.